Hello and welcome to the Battle Line Podcast, this place where we have conversation on that collision of space between community, faith, and culture. I'm one of your hosts, Major Matt Satterley, and here with me is our co-host, our producer, our media manager, the one who makes this whole thing run, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, how are you doing today?
I am so super swell. How are you?
Doing great. We finished up Christmas and New Year's, and if you could sum up your Christmas and New Year's in one word, what would it be?
Marvelous.
There it is. Our other co-host with us, Major Jamie Satterley, is not on today. She have other meetings and other things that she had to be a part of today that were very important. But you know, when you were playing baseball as a kid, you used to have Ghost Man on first. So that's what we're going to say about Major Jamie Satterley today. Ghost Man on first with us. Though she's not here, she's here with us in spirit. So Elizabeth, you want to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. Today we're speaking to April Foster from the Eastern Territory. April is the director of the Others program. If you've been around the Salvation Army, you've probably seen the products with the Others red tag on it. We're going to learn more about this program today.
All right, April, please. First question. Tell everybody about yourself. Tell our listeners about who you are. How long have you been working for the Salvation Army?
My name is April, and I have been born and raised in the Salvation Army. My parents are Salvation Army officers, so grew up in the Salvation Army, and had the privilege when I graduated from college of serving overseas as a layperson with the Salvation Army. Started off in Jamaica, teaching at a Salvation Army school for the blind there. And one thing led to another. Wasn't really part of a big master plan, but ended up spending 29 years overseas with the Salvation Army, from the Caribbean to then different places in Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and then 20 years in Kenya.
So awesome. And what is the origin story of Others? How did it get started and how has it grown?
I feel like with so many things in the Salvation Army, and even going back to, our beginnings with the booths, it really started with a vision of a couple who were serving in Bangladesh at the time, from Norway. And they were seeing the struggles of women, particularly women who were being trafficked and prostituted in the major cities of Bangladesh. And as the Salvation Army does, they began doing the simplest first thing that they could do, providing support and counseling for the women, food support, daycare for their children, one thing kind of leading to another. And then there was a kind of critical moment where some of the women said, it's all well and good that you're kind of teaching us these skills and giving us these, different kinds of opportunities for literacy and supporting our children, but we really need a way to come out of this situation that we're in. And that was really the seed of the planting of what Others would become. And from those skills of making handicrafts, they then began to look for markets to sell those products. They set up a shop in Bangladesh. They set up a shop in Bangladesh to sell those items, and then they began exporting those items, and one thing kind of led to another. But the very origins were around a very deep and compelling human need, particularly among vulnerable women, and the presence of the Salvation Army in that place at the right time and ready to respond in the ways that they could.
What were those first items that they were selling in Bangladesh?
Well, some of them we were actually just talking about a few minutes ago, just because embroidery is such a beautiful handicraft in Bangladesh. That's a traditional skill that's used in so many things. And so that was done on small purses, very intricate embroidery. And we still have many of those products, although different variations of that today, almost 20 years later, into the Other story. And then there were also a lot of hand-woven traditional weaving, and hand weaving is another skill in Bangladesh. And so a lot of bags and scarves and other kinds of things that could be done on a hand loom that has gone on to be include products made from wood. And but really starting with skills that the women had, building on those, and then developing products that would be of interest to people in many different parts of the world.
Sure. I've seen your winter catalog, which looks fantastic. If any our listeners out there, you need to get a hold of this catalog and see. You really are helping people out around the world, helping women out around the world. So, April, ask we hear a lot of buzzwords in the world today, especially when it comes to this kind of if you go to the website, I know it's a lot of our listeners, I'll say not that they are, but that it's easy to be like hipster, right? Like say something before it's cool, stuff about it before it's cool. So if you go to the website, you see a lot of phrases and they're very important, like fair trade, sustainable growth. For people who just sort of hear these buzzwords in the news today and just don't quite understand what does it mean, fair trade? What does like sustainable growth mean? What can you put that into some like layman's terms, some perspective for us?
Oh, I'll try. The fair trade movement really came out of a need, much like unions in our part of the world, in the United States, to ensure that there was equitable treatment of workers, of artisans, of producers, and really started with that basic premise that people who are producing or growing products need to be paid fairly for those products. They need to be able to work in a safe environment and to create the lowest possible impact on the environment in a negative way. So kind of three of the main principles of fair trade. And then, of course, a huge organization and guidelines and rules around that if you want to be certified as a fair trade organization, which has really elevated, products that everyone would know and love. Coffee, if you go to Starbucks, or chocolate, some of these huge exporting items, and all the way down to, fair trade brands that will be working with these kinds of principles in mind. I think for others, we really have had, because of the presence of the Salvation Army directly in the countries where our artisans are, we have been able to enter into something that's often referred to as a direct trade relationship. So there's no middle person. We are directly connected to the artisans. We are directly involved in the design of products. Products are directly sent to where they will be sold. And so that kind of direct trade relationship builds a lot of accountability, a lot of equity for people, because everyone is invested in that process. We know each other, we have relationship with each other. And so there's transparency there that I think even goes beyond what is often possible in a more structured kind of fair trade certified kind of environment. So we're very proud of that direct trade relationship that we have with the others artisans in the countries that we work with. Sustainable growth for me, I think about if you're a gardener and you throw a lot of fertilizer, on something, and you see if it's a tomato plant, it sprouts up, or a bean plant. And sometimes when a plant grows too fast, it can topple over. It needs some support and some, things around it to help it to really be strong. And sustainable growth for me is really about making sure that the growth that happens, whether that's economic or social or environmental, is really has strong roots. And any growth that is possible, whether that's in someone improving their livelihood and the amount of income that they're able to earn, that is able to continue into the future and passed on to the next generation without incurring debt, or without creating harm to the environment, or creating negative social impacts in terms of relationships within the community. So for me, that idea of what is sustainable is something that has strong roots, has the infrastructure to support it long term, and grows at an appropriate rate that can be managed by the people who are responsible for that.
Very cool. So if somebody buys something off the catalog, what kind of just what happens after that? They purchase it. What's the good that comes out of that?
Well, there's a whole process, as I've just mentioned, even before a product hits our catalog. We have a global designer who works directly with our artisan groups, creating the products that you see. Those products go through a a testing, samples are made, those samples are sent, they're reviewed until they are approved as a final product to show up in our catalog. We're very proud of the high quality of all that we produce and the handcrafted elements. So even though something may look the same, if you look really closely, it's not exactly the same because it's being made by a person, not by a machine. And so by the time something lands in our catalog and people are able to purchase it here or in other parts of the world, it's gone from the hands of an artisan. It's been shipped to one of our warehouses here in the States or in Norway or in Canada. And as soon as you purchase that product, our artisans are paid for every product as soon as we purchase them from them. And then all of the resources that are gathered from the sale of those products go directly back into purchasing more products. And, I'll share a story of some artisans a little bit later on in this conversation. But, again, we're back to that direct trade relationship. So every purchase that you're making, there's no middle person, there's no other layers of, support where that money is going. It's directly supporting the artisan that has made that product.
And how many countries is Others working with now?
We're working with Bangladesh and Kenya. And as I mentioned, we've been in Bangladesh for over 20 years. So there's really a long story there, generational change through the women that are involved with Others, which is a really amazing story to be part of. And then for the past 10 years in Kenya, and we have just over 700 artisans in Kenya. Over 800 artisans in Bangladesh who are active producing Others products in those two locations. And so we're very proud of these countries that are helping women to stand and be independent and have a level of economic security that otherwise they wouldn't have.
I think you're exactly right, April. I think that people here in the States probably have, I would say, maybe a vague idea about what Others does, but we want to hear the stories. Can you tell us a few success stories of how you have seen in your time with Others, how you've seen it just change lives, change future, give hope? Tell us those stories, please.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you one that was very impactful for me. I was, privileged to be able to start Others in Kenya while I lived there, and was very hands-on with all of the groups as they were initially forming. And there was a woman, her name is Magdalene, and she was a member of one of the groups that we started there, making some of our products from recycled paper. And as she was learning to make those products and began to make some income, we would always have conversation with her about what she was saving money for and what she was doing with the income that she was earning. And, she would say things like, so many of the women, I'm sending my children to school, I'm, paying the rent on my house, I'm, making sure our health, if there were any health concerns in the family, that those are being taken care of. And then one day I remember asking Magdalene, what are you saving now, from the income that you're making? And she said, I'm saving money for a door to my house. And I wasn't sure I had really, heard her correctly. And so I
Sure.
Asked again, so what do you mean you're saving for a door for your house? And she said, yeah, I don't have a permanent door. We don't have a permanent door on our home. It's very insecure and someone always has to be there. And my immediate response, and we were with a group of women, I was with the leader of that group, and my immediate response, like so many of us, even if you're hearing this story, was, I wanted to take the money out of my pocket that
For sure.
and give it to Magdalene to buy that door to put on her house. Like this was like totally an acceptable situation. And so I spoke to the leader of the group and I said, this is what I wanted to do. And this is that pivotal moment for me. And she said, just wait and see what Magdalene does. And it was very hard to wait. And, any of us who, see these kinds of needs and we want, and it's not bad, that first response to be just to solve, that problem that's in front of us. And so we waited and some weeks went by and maybe it was the next month or the month after that, we got an invitation from Magdalene to go to her home. So the whole group of women, we trekked off to her home, and as we approached, she, came down the path to meet us, and she escorted us to her home. And as we got there, she opened the door that she had bought to her home and invited us in. Now, that day for me is so deeply like etched in my mind because as we sat with Magdalene, it was so clear that the pride that she felt in having accomplished working for and purchasing this door for her home was contagious. I mean, and neighbors were coming by, and she had somehow gained a level of respect in the community, and it taught me a very important lesson that sometimes the desire to help, of course, is never wrong, but the way that we help can sometimes make people more vulnerable. It can take away their dignity. It can take away their sense of accomplishment or their desire to plan and to work towards goals that they have. And I think when I learned that from Magdalene, it just reinforced again my love for what others represents, because it's not a handout, it's not charity. It is a genuine partnership where people are making beautiful things with their hands that we're able to enjoy when we purchase them. And we become part of that story. And it kind of symbolically, for me, just spoke to that idea of a door of opportunity. And others really provides that kind of door of opportunity. And when I think about the hundreds of women who are part of others, that they're sending their children to school, they are building homes, they're buying land, they're purchasing assets that are part of that sustainable development, not just for the now, but for the future. All of that is part of the other story. And I'm just so proud that the Salvation Army is part of this kind of ministry.
That's an incredible story, April. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a listener among us who's hearing this right now who has to worry that they don't have a door on their house or their apartment. And so others is making that possible, not just to get a door, but also to build that pride and that respect that comes from that. Anything else? Any other story, April, you've heard of just life change that you'd love to share with us and with our listeners?
I mean, I have had the privilege to be in Bangladesh often and accompany in this place where others began. And there's a woman that I met there. Her name is Lucky. Kind of symbolic in so many ways as you kind of, hear more of her story. She was a young woman who came through a Salvation Army program for vulnerable women, and she learned skills to create products for others. And here was this woman who had, been so vulnerable and just almost no hope in her life until she met the Salvation Army. And then that really changed her story. And when we visited Lucky, I went to her home, sat in her home, and she was holding her two children, and she was talking about the businesses that she had started from the income that she earned from others. She had multiple sewing machines in her room, and she had hired other women who were busy making things. Her husband had been able to buy a small motorcycle and had a small transport business. But you could just see this woman whose total life story was changed because of an encounter with the Salvation Army and her involvement with others, that she took that beyond not just starting her own small business, but employing other women and being part of their change story. And so I love that about others as well. We talk about the individual artisan, but this is really about a story of family and community change, where the income that's earned by that one person just has a ripple effect to the people around them. And I love the story of Lucky because she just embodies that value of others so beautifully.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, all right, we want to know how to help.
Well, definitely go to our website, www.tradeforhope.com, and you will see icons there for different countries where you can directly purchase products that are listed on that website and learn more about who we are. And then follow us on social media, Instagram at Others USA, and on Facebook, Others USA. You'll see stories of our artisans. You'll get glimpses of the newest products coming out. You'll have opportunities to engage with questions. Many of our artisans follow us on social media. So when you comment on a product that you like or a story that you like, they're
awesome.
reading that. And so I think that's just such a cool space to not only, see something that others is doing, but to engage often directly with our artisans who are also on those spaces as well. So follow our story, follow us on social media, purchase products when you can. They make great gifts for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for a ministry that you're part of. And we'd love to have you join the Others family.
Yeah, Corps officers out there, I know like we talk about advisory board gifts or Corps gifts each year, but it doesn't just have to be that. And I know that we've just passed Christmas, but I mean, there are just great birthday gifts, things that you can give for, just they're practical gifts, which is always very much appreciated and needed. And look, you'll be buying things for Lucky. You'll be getting Lucky and Bangladesh some just building in that God given pride in what you do, and then also Adore. Geez, I mean, those are the things that we sometimes don't think about. April, we're going to ask you our last question that we ask all of our guests here in a second. But before we do that, I want to give you the mic. Do you have anything you want to say to our listeners? Anything else you want to tell them about Others? Before we ask you our last question?
There's a quote that I love, and it says that, we cast a vote for the world we want to see with every dollar that we spend. And so I think whether it's through Others or, other kinds of ethical or fair trade brands for different kinds of products that you purchase, being intentional about imagining the life of the person behind the product that you're purchasing, and doing what you can to really support these values of people's fair treatment for wages, for safe working environment, for not polluting the environment that they live in. And when we choose to spend our money in a place that has those values, it really does make a difference. And so I would encourage everyone, even if it's just, buying that fair trade coffee, buying that fair trade chocolate, purchasing an item from an ethical fair trade brand like Others, it does make a difference, not only for that individual, but for the world that we live in.
I've always kind of heard it said, like when people say, how do I start, caring about these things around the world? And that's just I heard somebody once say, pray for the country on the tag of your clothes, right? So like as you're putting on your shirt for this morning and it says made in Bangladesh or made in Haiti or something like that, you just start praying for them. And we're going to pray for all these countries that Others is working in as well. Again, tradeforhope.com. Check them out. Get a hold of that catalog. It's one of the best. It's an amazing catalog. I was floored with just how the design and layout of it is brilliant. So well done to that as well. All right, last question. We're going to go around the horn here. Is what is giving you joy in your life? We have just crossed into a new year, 2022. The big chalkboard eraser, and now we have a new clean slate to work with. So, Elizabeth, what is giving you joy as we start 2022?
It's a new year, but it is old jeans. I am bringing back my boot cut.
That's cool. This is where I need Major Jamie, because I'm sure she would be like, oh yeah, boot cut jeans. I totally know. But I'm just over here like, oh.
Well, they're hip with the youth, so I wanted to bring it back so I could, maintain my youth.
All right, April, how about you, man? What's giving you joy as you go into this new year?
The outdoors. During COVID, I've become an even bigger fan of being outside, often because that was the only thing that you could do during the last couple of years. But I've grown to love it. Hiking, taken up camping,
awesome.
and even camping through the winter, which my friends think I'm absolutely crazy. But I tell you, get outdoors. It's the best thing you can do. Just to clear your mind, to see the beauty of God's creation. It's been, such a refreshing thing for me, and I'm looking forward to doing more and more of it this year.
April, I've heard that. I'm not a huge camper, but we've camped enough, and I've heard people say the best time to camp is in the winter, because you get
no
to
one
see,
else is around.
Yeah, you get to see the sky because of the dry air. You can see more stars than you usually do. But the problem is it's freezing cold outside. So
There's nothing like too cold. It's just not the right clothing. Yeah.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Are you a national park visitor? Are you one of those people? I know that it's getting more and more popular of people trying to hit all of the national parks.
I would love to do that. I've hit a couple, but we have so many beautiful state parks. So check out your local area. You don't have to go far to find some really great spaces. So get out and explore.
For sure. For me, I think what's given me joy is I just finished Disney Plus Hawkeye. So is it giving me joy? I mean, I guess so. It was a good watch. Hawkeye is one of those guys. He's one of those Avengers who people just make fun of. He doesn't get enough credit for what he does. So he got his own show, and everybody I've heard that watched it said, "Hey, I really like that." So what's giving me joy is a heartfelt applause to the little guy out there, the overlooked. So, all right, well. Thank you very much, April, for talking with us today. Again, go to tradeforhope.com. Purchase the Others products. Anytime you see that red tag, you are just supporting people around the world and doing the most good, really. So thank you, April, for being on with us. We appreciate having you on. That's going to end this episode of the Battle Line Podcast. So be sure to subscribe to the Battle Line wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the Peer website at peermag.org or follow Peer on the socials at peer.magazine. All right. Well, thank you again, April. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Ghost Man on First, Major Jamie, wherever you are. And thank you, listeners, for being out there and checking us out. Check out others, tradeforhope.com. Until next time, this has been the Battle Line Podcast. Bye.